Friday night.
Friday
Happy
night,
Friday,
another
Friday.
winging it. And yeah, tonight we're going to go to Dallas, Texas and talk with Bonny Leibowitz.
Bonny Leibowitz.
Yeah.
A transplant from Philadelphia, I understand. Moved to Dallas and has created some amazing installations.
Yeah, so Bonny's, I guess, sculptor, does mixed media installations.
So this is
Wow.
This is kind of fun. This is the root of a tree. A friend of mine lives on a lake out here, and brought me this tree, and so I want more and more, but I painted it pink. This is it's mulberry bark. It's natural natural bark, and then I rusted it with some iron filings and vinegar and just laid it on there.
Hi.
Hi, Bonny. Welcome to Winging It.
Thank you. How are you?
Good, good. I'm
Good.
Charles, and it's Marc.
And
Yes.
Marc,
Hi,
Hi.
Mark. Hi, Charles.
nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
Yeah, so how it's pretty cold up here in Toronto. How's it doing down there?
Oh, well, much warmer, I'm sure.
I imagine.
Do you have a lot of snow right now?
No, we don't get a lot of snow in Toronto.
Okay.
Maybe two, what,
Sometimes.
2 inches, Marc? Well,
Not
sometimes, but not compared to the rest of Canada and the rest of the province here.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's just
know
cold,
New
just
York.
cold, windy, and miserable. That's all.
Oh, good. Just windy and miserable. It's limited misery. Well, we
Right.
were pretty nice weather for a couple days, and then it's supposed to get cold. Believe it or not, it actually does get cold in Dallas sometimes. We've had actually some snow and ice some years, but in general, it's bearable.
Right on, right on. Well, it looks like you're in your studio, and I can see
I am.
some of your work hanging in the
Yeah.
background. I was on your site past few days looking at everything, so kind of familiar with
Oh, good.
your various projects. And the one right behind you, that's the most current.
Right. This is the most current series. So, later when we're ready, I'll show you the studio. I'm not able to hang everything in the studio the way I can for an installation properly. So you'll have to excuse that. But I did try to hang what I could. My work right now really depends on environment. And, it will change according to where I get to hang the work, as you saw.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, I'll put some things out because I have some hanging work on paper. I have 3D objects. I have things on the table. So you'll be able to see some different supplies too that I use, and found objects and things like that.
Yeah. Well, why don't we just jump right in and maybe
Okay.
start talking about the media you use
Okay.
and why you work in this way.
The current work is called A Tear in the Universe.
Right.
When I first started this series, it's really each series grows out of the one before anyway. Like I think many artists, you kind of take some concepts and pull them forward. Some you feel like you've explored, some are new. But I think especially with the pandemic and all that's been going on, kind of like my concept in my work seemed even more prevalent because like you, it's questioning the stability and what's going on. And so when I first started this work, I was thinking a tear in the universe, a tear in the universe.
Nice. Yeah.
And playing with that word tear and tear. Again, I just felt like it spoke to our time. I wanted to talk about how, the idea of truth and not truth, our expectations and hopes compared to what we think of as our reality and how that changes by every minute. And so to do that, I'm using different objects that might seem disparate. You know, so maybe some that are, you know, manufactured, some that are parts, some that are, you know, natural elements. And I really started off like, I use some words that sound like maybe too egotistical, but I started off with the word epic and apocalyptic.
Okay.
And so, I mean, that's a pretty tall order. But but
But why shoot for anything less?
right.
I mean, you're also dealing with the universe.
And the universe.
Universe, yeah.
It's not a tear in the neighborhood or in the you know,
Yeah.
even in the local area. In
Right.
the region, it's the universe.
The universe, the whole universe.
Go for it.
Exactly. So I just, you know, I've been working towards doing installation over the many years, from working in paper and some 3D and working on flat boards and canvas and those kinds of things. And then, you know, my objects in the pieces that were flat I started to wonder what would it look like as a 3D object. And so it's grown into that. And it's always been my intention since then, how can I make an installation where it would be an environment? So that's what this is getting closer and closer to.
Yeah,
now.
I love that element. You know, some of it seems you know, organic material. Some of it is clearly like paper and constructed by you. And
Yeah.
it also kind of I love that it's mashing up like sculpture with paint. Like there's paint on it, and
Yeah.
Thank you.
some collage, I believe, with this show with the Bosch images, and I forget what the other one you had. There were some images from paintings that you had
Yeah.
collaged into these, right?
Right. I used Bosch. I think for me, Bosch was a really good reference because of that piece, Garden of Earthly Delights, and that's been a favorite of mine for a long time. And you know, it really speaks to all these elements. And so what I did was I purchased paper that it's a handmade paper that is pretty heavy duty, and it's pulled, hand pulled by 4 people, and you know, handmade, and it comes in these large sheets that are 6 foot long, and I just loved it and wanted to paint on it, and I'm doing the collage on there. So I decided to get the square inches of you know, the Garden of Earthly Delight in all of these paper pieces. And so that's what I have hanging, but I tore them. I didn't want to do rectangle, rectangle, rectangle and make a, you know, a similar, but just to use the concepts. And so I'm making the paintings into objects themselves. And I like the idea of collage, you know, bringing that imagery in. I was fortunate, I found this amazingly high-res image of garden, like a huge file. And so I could take the tiniest elements and blow them up.
Yeah.
And so I was really fortunate to find that. And I just really kind of made some of them these really acidy colors, just, you know, because just screeching acidy colors.
Yeah, and it's psychedelic and yeah, neon.
Yeah.
So to be clear, the universe has the tear or that's being torn up is the garden itself, the Garden of Earthly Delights.
Well, I think I'm more related, yes, and relating it to a tear in our field of expectations of what's going on in our lives, and that here for us has been, or for me, I should say, politically, and then with the pandemic. And so to me, it just seems a tear in what was previously perceived as reliable to some degree.
Business as usual.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that it really ever was or
No,
is.
no. Well, it's always been a fiction anyway, or
Yes. Yeah.
an illusion. I've been read through some of your artist statements, and I know you quote Pema Chodron, and there's a fair bit of reference to consciousness and just like that. So there's the social political instability and uncertainty, but then there's just the kind of the more the deeper philosophical or spiritual issues of permanence and impermanence.
Exactly. Yeah, very much so. And also like how we can't really talk about that and pinpoint what that is, but I think everybody has a sense of it within. And also it's almost like you have to use objects and imagery to point to what's not there or what isn't seen.
Right.
So that's where it gets tricky, how to make something about nothing. That's always been a tough conundrum, and but I think there's lots of ways to get to that, and that can be with imagery, that could be with text, that can be, but for me, it's some of those combinations. So to me, that's the tear, and that's what I found in Bosch's that I could relate to. I also used other very uplifting images like Rubens' Fall of the Damned.
Right.
And so I just love his drawing quality anyway. Absolutely. And so it's got all these bodies, just kind of falling or
sure, and very kind of weird, contorted,
yes.
Unnatural. Yet you look at them and you understand this feeling what he's conveying through those contorted bodies, right?
Right.
Exactly. And I feel like, my work, although it doesn't look like a figure, to me it's body-like, because they are organic forms. I have trouble working any other way but really organically. And so the work is not geometric. And so to me, they are body, like torso and shapes that, feel intimate or familiar somehow.
Yeah, I mean, some of your images, I know you use a lot of like found trees and sticks and roots and stuff. And, and then a lot of the shapes are very kind of bulbous and organic, and they feel very primal and obviously of the earth, although they might be bright pink, for example, or weird medical green or something. But there's that dichotomy there where you're looking at the object and it's a living thing if it's from a tree or it looks like a bulb or something. But then sometimes these human-made colors.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah. And so I feel like the body is in the work. And I do sometimes think about being more literal in that way. I do like to draw. I have some drawings that a drawing at least I have here. But even painting figure or making objects even more literal in the work, but we'll see. We'll see if it goes there. It's kind of hard to predict.
That's right. You have to follow where the, your muse takes you, or
Yeah.
It can be tricky trying to find a way to bring a figurative element into abstraction, into an abstract
Yeah.
work, and
well,
especially
that's right. And
the sculptural works that you're
I've
doing.
struggled with that.
Collage, yeah.
And I sent you earlier today those pieces from, I was working on the big loose canvases, and I tried to collage in images and drawings,
Yeah.
but it was challenging.
Yeah.
Uh,
Because you wonder, well, how is it perceived? Is it perceived as an allegory, a narrative? Is it perceived as an abstract object? And then it's like, if you leave that and don't do it, or if you do it on some pieces but not, you just, the connection, like how do you work it in so that, and I don't feel like a body of work has to be all one thing, of course.
Yeah.
But I think that's what really intrigued me. One, it made me want to do installation in some other way was that years ago I saw an installation by James Sullivan, and I really loved it. And it was like, it had a lot to do with memory. And there was a table of drawers that you could open, and it had little objects in it. And then it had like a big organic form, body form, and then like a rock on the ground. It was objects that felt like an intimate room, yet they weren't like, oh, here's a series of this work. So that's something I really like as well.
Yeah, some of the pieces I was looking at from previous series seem to have like tables and cabinets where the shapes kind of were growing out of, which I totally love that. It's like, you wake up from a dream and you've got this sort of thing growing off of your dresser or whatever.
I wanted to ask, and I'm still sort of stuck on the Garden of Earthly Delights as a cosmos kind of idea.
Sure.
Have you ever seen the exterior of that painting? It's a
Yes.
when you close it
with the closed dome. Yeah.
It's a globe, a grayscale kind of globe, and when you look at it from that perspective, it is like a cosmos or possibly a microcosm. I'm not quite sure what Bosch's intention is.
Yeah.
Isn't it beautiful?
Isn't it an amazing idea?
It's the most amazing. It's the painting that is sort of like the seed of all my work is. I keep coming back to Bosch in this specific.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
I once went to there was a dance here about 4 years ago called the Garden of Earthly Delights, and the dancers it was a modern dance, so they basically had shapes like from the painting, and their moves were very
that's great.
Strange, but it was like the Frozen group, like especially the groups of people together, and they would all come and just be like, they would move from sort of scenario to scenario from the painting. It was quite
I love that.
It was freaky. It was very freaky. Yeah.
I love that. And so a couple of things on that. So I was showing a friend of mine my work, the recent work that was photographed. I've taken it to a few different places to photograph it, but I recently did this install and got some shots. And she was noting that it felt theatrical in somewhat. Sure. So I got in touch with, and she said, what would it look like on a stage, in a stage, theater setting? And that kind of excited me. And so I did reach out to somebody that does performance work here in Dallas, and because I know she's connected with theater. Right now, nothing's open, or
nobody can do anything really.
Yeah. But
I mean, I guess you could set it up somewhere, and a dancer could go in and improvise something, and you could video it from afar or something.
And it turns out that like I didn't get responses because things were closed, but then I was approached by a school here that asked me, for a show, one that had been canceled, due to the pandemic. And then, so she's associated with a university. And so she said, you know, let's try to schedule it again. But have you ever thought, like, other than using our gallery, would you consider using the theater in addition? And asked me about this artist that I reached out to about doing performance with her group in it. I was like, that's so crazy, because that's exactly, you know, something I would love to have happen. So we're
Seems like
working on it.
the next step, eh? It seems like it's gonna happen. You know,
I think you can get some amazing lighting maybe, and, you
Oh,
know.
yeah. Well, it makes sense. Your work, it doesn't just invite looking, it invites, you know, walking through motion, movement.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm afraid we can't enjoy that that particular aspect of it, especially right now. But
Right.
it's the kind of thing that, you know, you want to move around through and see from so many different angles. You know, you want to immerse yourself in it, and so I can see how theater would work that way as well.
Yeah.
It just is such a dynamic image. I mean, with that, those
Awesome.
greens and reds.
Sure.
Little red devil in there.
And then this is a, yeah, this is a piece. Yeah, I'll send you an image of this one, because I usually have it hanging on the wall. This one's
Nice.
called the heart, and it's got a tree branch in there.
Yeah, these.
And that's mostly done with foam.
Yeah, so they wouldn't have the same effect if they didn't have the color. I mean, you know, I like sculptures that use just found natural material, but when you put a bit of color, it really takes it into almost like a psycho-spiritual or other realm, you know,
I love
ritualistic
that.
and
Well, when you mentioned the back of the, you know, the other side of
Other side of the garden, yeah.
the other side. That's why I wanted to paint both sides of the paintings too, of the paper.
Right,
So when they
right.
hang, you'd have that experience of, you know, and not completely, but I wanted to make dark on one side, light on the other, you know, have
Hmm.
different feelings on each
Yeah.
side of the pieces. So
Yeah, it's awesome. Now I saw on your site that you did a residency with Judy Pfaff. I don't know how you say her
that's
name.
right.
And
Wow.
your work definitely reminds me. Obviously, her work is different, and your work is different. But wondered if you could talk about, like, is she an inspiration to you? Or?
Yes, I've loved her work for many years. And although, you know, I've looked at a lot of artists, you know, we're constantly
Sure.
looking.
Yeah, yeah.
But so I have some association with Michael David, M. David and Company in New York. And so I was invited to do a residency. He invited Judy Pfaff to the residency I did was actually at Michael David's in New York, in Brooklyn, in Bushwick. But Judy came out there to be with us.
Yeah.
And so I just loved it. She's a really generous person, and you know, it was wonderful. She really you know, seemed, I shouldn't say seemed, she was sincerely interested in the work, and she invested herself and was curious and gave lots of suggestions in a way that weren't like direct. And at the time, I was using a little bit less color in my work, just to really build up my sense of form and make the forms that I was using stronger. And I felt like I needed to eliminate something. So for a little while there, I had less color, and she was like, what about bringing the color back in your work? And oh, it just felt so freeing to, like, you know, like, I'm allowed. And
Yeah.
I wasn't allowed. I was allowed, but it just felt like something that I had kind of left behind a little bit. So so that now that I feel, I'm sorry?
I was just going to ask, with the color aspect, does that feel like it's too frivolous at times? Like, do you feel like
I
that's?
think maybe I felt that, you know, and
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to not make, I wanted the color to be for a purpose and a reason, and,
Sure.
you know, not that it was pretty or decorative or any other reason. And so I felt like I had to leave it for a little while. And I love black and white. I love monochromatic. I love all
Well,
kinds.
there seems to be some kind of factions of sculptors who eschew color, like it has to be pure form, and uh, using color is cheating because you have to use the physicality to express
Yeah.
what you need to express, right? I can see
Yeah.
that being some, especially whatever people who have like kind of fundamental or dogmatic ideas about what a piece of art should be. But I'm thinking about some of those pieces you did, and they were like maybe black or gray, or like a couple of muted tones, and you do see the form more clearly.
Yeah.
But it lacks that kind of maybe emotional or whatever
Yeah.
color brings, right? Color brings.
Right. Right.
So when you
And-
brought it back in, was it used in a way to support some kind of purpose, or did you have some other purpose or some other ideas for the color when you brought it back?
Yes, I think it was much more direct in the sense that the color, it was like, why am I using this? What am I trying to say with the color? And some of it was just allowing the materials to hold the color as opposed to painting color on them,
Right.
like letting some of the like not using my hand, but making the material do something. So I'm using like foam, for instance. And so like I might add color to the foam to make it a color and then pour that on, as opposed to like having a painterly way of painting it out. And so I'm pretty aware of these pinks that I'm using. And there's a certain plushness and sensuality, and also it's really funny to look at some of the work that I think is like from the Renaissance and maybe 17th century, 16th century medieval works, and see how much pink was used in those. It's really surprising. And even in like Indian miniatures, I just love them, and they have such beautiful color and so much meaning to them behind each one. And so yeah, I'm definitely feeling that it's more pointed and more sensible, like necessary.
Okay. Now, from project to project, do you find that the colors that you choose are different? I mean, I did see one. So after that body of work that was more toned down, there seemed to be one that was really almost like pastel-y and celebratory.
Yeah.
And the
Oh,
work,
yeah.
and the current work seems more like almost fleshy, like you're saying, the pinks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it does go through phases like that. And I think just some of that is just working where you're holding up one thing, and it feels right with another thing.
Sure.
And how that fits together. So yeah, but I love that word fleshy, because again, we're talking about body and
Bodies,
yeah. As a matter of fact, some of the forms that I'm thinking to use moving forward, some of those little characters, if you want to call them that, in Bosch's Earthly Delights, is like these characters that are like something you've never seen, an eggshell guy with fish legs, and all of these sequences that somehow don't make sense, but yet they do. I mean, it's like, I remember like when I first started thinking about these concepts many years ago, was I read a book, and I went to an author's talk, and it was called Invisible Lines of Connection. And he was talking about how we're the ones that assign names to things like, finger, hand, and so, we've decided with language that this is, the end of this, the beginning of that. Whereas, in nature, that's That's not true. It's a continuum. And so, anyway, I think that was
Sure.
part of, yeah.
Yeah, well, for sure, right? That's the mental capacity, the delineation. We were talking to another artist last week, and we brought up Descartes. Like that's where
Yeah.
this is this and that is that
Yeah.
starts to happen, and part of the function of the mental process is to sort of delineate things, to try and understand them, but then it becomes
organized nature.
It becomes organizing. It becomes dogmatic, and for some people it's really rigid, and
Right.
other people it's much more fluid and
Exactly.
But you're hitting
And
on
we have to
something
use
real.
language. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say you're hitting on something really important and interesting in Bosch's work, is that these hybrid forms, they're there right from the beginning, right in the garden itself, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
as if he's saying that the world was not perfect, or at least not perfect in the sense that maybe the current day theology saw it at the beginning.
Yes.
It was already distorted, contorted. There were deformities that would not have been considered perhaps deformity.
all combinations. Yeah.
All combinations, exactly. So
Combinations.
right there in the garden at the onset. So
someone sells ceramics of those. You can
Oh,
buy
yeah.
actual like little figures, like collection figures, like
Yeah.
of those Bosch weird Bosch characters, apparently.
Well, then that brings you to like surrealism and
Absolutely.
I love Leonora Carrington. I love her painting.
Sure. I mean, there wouldn't have been a Dali without Bosch and Bruegel and those guys.
That's another image I have collaged in, is a Bruegel, the Tower of Babel. I love that.
Yeah,
Just talking about the tongues, the language, and yeah.
Early on, you were talking about essentially the conflict between truth and untruth, which of course is very prevalent right now. How does that work itself into your work?
Well, we would all have to agree on what truth is, to like say, oh, this is true, not true. So I think, there are many truths, but I think there's a deeper truth to like a real beauty and a real, like, you recognize something great. You recognize a great piece of art, and when it hits you, you can sense something that's deeper, that says something more, whether it's in writing or art, visual arts.
A lived experience of truth, or something that to be true through lived experience, for example.
And not believing in, it's like, I think as you start to question constructs that were, you might go, why did I always believe that? Or so I feel like, that questioning, maybe we don't get answers, but we know in our gut that there's
Sure.
At least I think, I'm saying we, but when something hits you, that's feels like a universal truth,
Well, and then there are the like when you get into things like quantum physics, and the whole question of whether things are actually solid, right? We
Exactly.
know from quantum physics that it's mostly empty space, but it sure is, no matter how hard I try to make those you know, atoms and things move, they feel solid to me, right? But you know, then that brings into question, well, but is it your thoughts that make it seem solid? You know what I mean? Like there's
Right. And I think they've, you know, they say like, you know, for instance, like a dog can hear higher frequencies than we can. Or,
yeah.
you know, so we only have whatever our perception is of the world, whatever our capabilities are, that's what they are. So, you know, we can take a guess and relate to the concepts in quantum physics, but we can't really live it, you know, at this point. Yeah.
Well, yeah, like if you look at the continuum of frequencies, right? Like we see this much out of, you know, frequencies, and we hear this much. There are other instruments that can now maybe that can record or measure, but so that really challenges our ideas of what is real, right? I mean, you can say this is real because I can see it and feel it, but someone else can measure it and you know, or someone can meditate. I've had the experience of meditating, and you know, the floorboards start to go transparent and I can see the grains of wood. Like, how does that happen? You know, I previously could only see the surface, and suddenly it's like a hologram or something. It's getting, you know, so is that because I'm allowing my mind to soften, and then those, you know, those seemingly solid particles are now separating, you know, like
an out of body experience. I've had that a couple times, and then you know, people that have, you know, experienced that regularly, or they speak to you know, other forces, or and then you could, you know, it's just, oh, you could go on and on. Is it?
This is another painting, but I just have it laying on the table. Kind of hard to see, but that's a hanging piece as well. I have, you know, several of them on the table under here, but just to give you an idea of how the bird wings look on this one.
Well, you know, the amazing thing, Bonnie, is that it works flat too. It works being, you know, laying like that on a table, you know. It looks like, you know, a bird has just fallen into a lake or something, and it's sort of like wings are still sticking out, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yes. It's interesting because when I did the installation, like I had one of my paper pieces, I let it kind of drape onto the floor, but I love the idea of it just being a floor piece, you know? That's great. Thank you. And then these are some pieces that I did a big piece in the last couple weeks. And sorry. And then it looked too solid, so I've cut it up, and I'm gonna make like separate pieces out of it. And
are you using like metallic paint in that one, like copper or something?
No, but it looks like it. It really does because of the coloring. It's like a caramely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it really does.
Hard to tell on camera. It looks like it could be like metallic gold or copper.
Even in person, it would appear that way. Yeah. So I'm using these structures and foam, and then some of the mulberry bark again. And then this just to give you kind of an idea of some of the studio, some more objects. So like, I like little things like this. This looked like a little sunflower bomb kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
Nice.
Little crazy objects. And just down here, just like kind of, I don't know, supplies, I guess,
all
if
the
you want to
bins,
call it that. And you know, these are some larger pieces that I couldn't say, you know, but I'll send pictures of. This one sits on the wall with on a pipe.
Oh yeah, there we go.
It's just when you have limited space, you know, and you're making these big 3D objects, where
oh yeah,
the heck do you put all this stuff?
that is, you know, with all the artists, we've interviewed, a lot of them have steered away from sculpture and installation for that reason. Where do you keep the stuff, right? Yeah.
For that purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very, and I end up repurposing a lot of stuff, but not everything.
Well, here you go. Your
And then
drawing.
this
This
is
drawing.
a drawing on paper. Yep. Yeah, it's a drawing on paper, and again, like that torso kind of bowl shape that I like. And so yeah, some other objects here,
Oh, yeah.
but that's pretty much the space. I have a little bit on this side too, which is just more supplies and a table to work on.
So,
Over on this side.
Do you go to the studio every day pretty much and work, or you have like a routine, or?
Not really. I try to get in as many hours as I can, but it's not every day. I also teach, and that takes my time,
Right.
and so yeah, so I just try to do as much work as possible, but so like what I really like to do is like get everything off my schedule if I can, and then take like a few days. And
Right.
so usually I can do that every week, is like have like a couple of days, but it's not like a daily.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's about it in here.
Awesome.
It's amazing.
Thank you. Really
Right.
appreciate you taking a look.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wonderful.
it's a pleasure for us.
Oh, this is cool.
Well, thank
Well,
you
this
so
is
much.
a good note to go out on. Looking at this, it's
Yeah.
fabulous stuff. And thank you so much for taking the time, giving us a tour, and
Yeah, thank you for the tour.
sharing your process with us and all
Thank
our
you.
viewers. And,
Thank you. I'm really honored. I really have enjoyed your interviews and your style, and just your thinking, and so really honored to be on the podcast, and be interviewed. Appreciate it.
all right.
Thank you. We're honored as well.
Oh,
All right.
thanks.
So take care, and we'll keep in touch. And
Who knows, but I'll be in New York in June, so
Yeah,
I will definitely send you an invitation. That would be wonderful if that might happen.
all right,
If we're allowed to go, we'll be there.
Yeah,
for sure.
excellent.
Awesome.
Take care, Bonnie.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
You're
you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Sure. Bye-bye.